Hello, everyone. Welcome into today's session, Turning Relationships into Results with Business Relationship Management, presented by our Director of Business Solutions here at Watermark Learning, Dr. Susan Heidorn. My name is Mariela Salinas, and I'll be assisting and moderating today's session. We are on Zoom for today's webinar, and we will be emailing you a copy of the recording after the session concludes. We do encourage participation throughout the session, so please use the chat or that Q&A option for any short Q&As at the end of the presentation. Educate 360 and Watermark Learning are so excited to present this webinar today. So without further ado, I'll hand it right over to you, Dr. Heidorn.
Thank you so much, Mariella. Well, today we're going to have a lot of fun talking about business relationship management. One of the, I would say, professions that I have fallen in love with and find so meaningful. And it's one of those things I always say everybody should be a business analyst. I also think everybody should be a BRM because we could change the world. So with that said, let's take a look and see what we have. So today's session is really talking about bringing business relationship management activities and I wouldn't say task. I would say more activity skills and bringing them to the table and really finding that we can add strategic value by really building those relationships. So BRM's business relationship managers help organizations really create value. We create value. How do we create value? We create value through those relationships, aligning people, priorities, and outcomes, focusing on the outcomes more than just the task. So today we're going to take you on a little journey here. We're going to explore practical ways, hopefully, to strengthen your relationships, to think about your relationships in a different way. Kind of relationships with intention. We all have relationships, and the question is are they relationships that are strong and meaningful and helping the organization not obtain value as well as meet their organizational purpose. So relationships, I want to go beyond the fact that they're nice. I mean, we have relationships, we have friends with this person or that person, but how do we dig deeper? How do we get value out of those relationships beyond personal value? How do we get organizational value and strategic value from them? And so that's really what we're going to cover today as we move forward. So what are we going to talk about today? Well, we're going to look at BRM through the value or through the lens, I should say, of organizational value. Not just stakeholder management. If you've been a business analyst, if you've been a project manager, we all, talk about stakeholder engagement, stakeholder management, and all of those components. This is like that and on steroids, really, because it can be so much more. And so we're going to learn the practical techniques of bringing people in alignment. BRM uses convergence, so we'll talk about a little bit about that. Building trust and having really strong value conversations. And what questions will help you with those value conversations? And so my goal today is not only to introduce you, if you haven't been introduced before, to business relationship management, but to have you leave with at least one action, one skill that you can apply immediately after this so that it is a little bit more meaningful instead of just having a really nice conversation. So to get us started, let's do a poll. Mariella, if you would like to launch that. So what gets in the way of results? When you look at your organization, how come you're not getting the results that you want, the results that you expected? And so I just kind of, I think you can only pick one. There might be, many of you said, well, all of the above. I didn't put that option in, but just curious kind of where you're at. So feel free to tell me what's going on in your organization. It's every organization has its challenges. Every time, I've been a consultant for over 30 years. There wasn't any organization I went to that didn't have a few issues that could be, shored up. So I'm getting a little bit, 75%. So I think we're just going to end the poll here. I think most of you have had an opportunity to put in. So let me just share the results. Um, Hopefully you can see them. Conflicting priorities. Wow, 38%. That looks like our largest. Our next one is poor communication. Oh, that never happens, right? I wish, as much as I work on that. We get busy and communication doesn't happen, and we don't get people on the same page. Lack of stakeholder engagement, resistance to change. Boy, and then we have a lot of change coming at us, right? And then unclear business needs. So interesting. As you look at that list, I'm going to just stop sharing here. I think I did share. Mariella, did I share the results? I just want to make sure.
Absolutely. Yeah, we did for
Okay,
sure.
good. Because I thought I was sharing it. Um, Here's the one thing, and you may have noticed this as you were kind of thinking about where are my organizational challenges, is that all of these challenges are about relationship issues or alignment issues. They're not about technical issues. You don't see anything technical on that list. The whole reason being is that most of most of the things that are get in our way are a lot of times because we haven't built strong relationships. We haven't aligned people to the same purpose and to the same goal. And that's really where business relationship management provides value, is bringing those people together, bringing, and building strong relationships. And that's what we're going to talk about the rest of this session is, okay, Susan, that's great. How do we get there? So we have relationships all the time. You all have relationships with people at work, and you were probably told to, when you first started in the profession, or even as you built your profession, you gotta network, you gotta know people, and you know, figure out how you can help each other out. So this is really past or beyond, I would say, building, just doing a network, because we all network, but it's building relationships, and not only relationships that are good for us, but relationships that drive results, that focus on the organization. So it's not about collecting and maintaining those relationships and having a ton of contacts in your contact list. It's about looking at it and saying, hey, how many do I have really strong relationships with? Because those strategic relationships, those strong relationships would really help us and help the organization execute strategy and get to the outcomes that the organization is looking for. So any project that we do should be able to achieve those desired outcomes because we do it together. And so real value that we are trying to get to from any project, any change initiative we try and do, one of the things I always tell people is, what is the value? What is the value you expect to come out of it? Well, to get that real value, it happens when relationships connect people. They connect priorities. They connect our investments. We have everybody moving the same way in the organization. Because if you think about it, just think about something maybe you've just recently implemented. Maybe it was a software project, maybe new processes or whatever. What happens when you don't get people on board? You don't get the value. Some of them may be on board and excited about it. Others say, no, I don't want to use this. I'm going to use the old stuff. There's just a lot of things that get in the way. Maybe the management even hasn't had real buy-in. And if you don't have everybody moving to the same goal, to the same outcomes, you're not going to be able to do that. And how we help get to that value is building those strong relationships in organizations. And so there are formal BRMs in organizations, but I want to even premise the fact that I think we should all have BRM skills and BRM capabilities. A lot of times, business analysts and project managers kind of move up to a BRM role because we have been involved in stakeholder engagement and bringing stakeholders together and getting them on the same page around the project or change initiative. And then we can move up in our skill sets about being business relationship management. So even if we don't have the title, we can still use those skills to benefit ourselves as well, and maybe more to the organization. So thinking about, why do relationships even matter? I've got friends, I've got people I can talk to, I've got colleagues, but think about what's going and happening in our organization today. And I'm just, we're in constant change. Does anybody feel like that? Feel like you're in the gerbil wheel and you're going like, you're running and you can't get out, you know? Competing priorities, hybrid work environments. I've been working with a number of people and they're still trying to get their feet on the ground about, okay, how do we used to all come together, work together, and then we had COVID and we all worked separately for a couple of years. And now it's like, where are we at? And you would think, organizations were already like, oh, they know what they're doing, they know where they're going, they're not having any problems. No, there's still issues around how do we work in a hybrid environment? How do we get people to back in the office, or how many days should we do that? I'm still working with that on organizations. And then cross-functional teams we can't do it in just one silo anymore. So the whole thing is that we have to do it together. There's just so much change. So I'm curious, I'd love you to put in the chat for me. What are the changes that are impacting your organization right now? Is there just constant change, a lot of change, competing where do you find most of your challenges? Just to love to hear from a few people here. Ambiguous work environment. AI, Christy, I didn't mention that. That is huge. Everybody is going like, what do we need to do it because everybody else is doing it, but what do we do with it? And how can we use it? Systems and people changes. Yeah, Doge. Isn't that for sure? AI though, yeah, that is really huge, isn't it? I mean, that's one of the biggest changes, and we don't know what we don't know, and it is going to replace some people, other people it's not. Same thing, that we had in the other things. We had the internet, we had the computer. I mean, there was, the newest technology comes at us, and it's like, what does that mean for us? What does that mean for us for an organization? What does it mean for us as people? More software releases than ever. Everybody needs to keep up because, yesterday was too old. It doesn't meet our needs anymore. Competing priorities. I love it. Yeah. Creating systems across organization due to acquisition. Doing more with less. Wow, Rhonda, that's so true. I feel like a colleague of mine always said, she felt like everybody's running with scissors. I'm not sure what that ever meant, but I thought it was an intriguing saying. But I feel like that today. It's like, oh my God, I'm running with scissors. It's like I could do damage to myself or anyone else at any point in time. So that's even more of a reason, and I love what you put in. It is so crucial in this time of constant change that we do need each other, and relationships are key to our success, the success of the organization, our success personally, because we can't do it alone. Nobody succeeds alone. You have AI. What do we do with AI? We all have to be on the same page around AI or hybrid environments, or we have competing priorities, but which ones do we prioritize. How do we come together to understand that? We do that through relationships. Relationships have now become the competitive advantage because we can't do it alone. And we have to get together. And so that's why relationships are even more important in this, I think, this day and age. I mean, relationships are always important. I'm not saying that, but I think these days it is really extremely critical that we build the relationships. We have people bringing them to the table. They're all talking to one another. They all understand each other. They're going after the same goal and how to get there, and so if you are trying to put new process together, new software together, it's not so much about the technology and the technology not working, but what do people expect from the software or the new process? Everyone has different experiences. Maybe they're trying for customer alignment. We all have different experiences. Marketing has a different experience than operations versus customer service. I mean, we all are looking at it from a different lens point. And that means we have to be able to bring people together so that everybody sees each other's viewpoints, because together then you get the whole picture. Otherwise, you just have a small part of it. And so it really requires helping people align, converge, not just to execute the project when it's done, check. That one's done, which is kind of nice because we're so busy. It's like, oh, I got that off my desk, got it, that's off my desk. But we have to step back and think about it more. So what is business relationship? Okay. It's really a strategic discipline. We have to think more strategically as BRMs. And it helps connect both organizational goals with its people, with its capabilities. And so it's just not managing relationships. Oh, I can manage them. It's really creating partnerships. So it's not just, making sure that they're okay and they still like us. It's about really forming partnerships, really adding value to those partnerships. And so some of the components in a business relationship management is certainly helping align organizational purpose and strategy. Does everybody understand the strategy? Does everybody understand their purpose? And this is, besides aligning organizational purpose and strategy with people, it's helping people align their own personal purpose. So think about your personal purpose. And I use this a lot when I teach our BRM certification, is that if you can align through relationships, align the personal purpose. Why are we here? What purpose do we serve to the organization's purpose? Wow. What does it get you up in the morning? I know when I work with, I've been a consultant for many, many years. And when I work with government, whether it's county government, state government, a lot of them are there because of purpose, that my purpose aligns with the organizational purpose to help others, to help our constituencies, I live in Minnesota, to help the the members who live in Minnesota. I've worked with also the VA, and wow, they really are mission driven. Their purpose aligns with the vision and the mission of the Veterans Affairs. It is just amazing and can do phenomenal things when everybody is aligned with the purpose. And so kind of thinking about, I'm going to plant a seed. What is your personal purpose and does it align to the organization? So my personal purpose is always about, learning and sharing information like I'm doing now and getting information from people. And, that always gets me excited. And so Educate 360 is the perfect way that I can satisfy my personal purpose and help the organization satisfy their purpose. There's an alignment there. So just kind of pondering, I'm just putting little seeds out there to see if they'll germinate. So building strategic partnerships, certainly creating value through those partnerships, connecting those capabilities. All of us have different gifts, all of us have different capabilities. How do we help create that business outcome? So aligning people, priorities, and investments. And BRM Institute will say about it's not about alignments, it's convergence. And I didn't purposefully use convergence here because people will go like, what are you talking about? So, but bringing everybody aboard together, we're in the ship, right? And the ship is going to sail or it's going to sink. And we all do it together. And hopefully, if you get everybody together, it's going to sail. It's going to sail to the other side of the world or wherever you're aiming for. So if you think about it, I just want you to, again, another seed planting. If you could create these strong relationships and everyone was converging on the same purpose, everyone was moving in the same direction instead of those competing priorities, what could you get done in the organization? Just a thought. You don't have to answer me right now. I just want you to think about it. So here's the BRM framework. I'm not going to go in it in depth because you can do that if you choose to get their certification. But it's a nice backdrop and framework for what I'm talking about. And I'm using BRM a little bit more generically because this isn't a certification class. But you notice on top, it's all driven by organizational purpose and strategy. It doesn't say, oh, XYZ project or XYZ change initiative. No, it says we're driving to the purpose and strategy. Now, projects and change initiatives might be how we do that, which is great. That's going to get us there. But we need to understand if we're building strong relationships and helping the organization create value, we need to understand what the organizational purpose and strategy is. So my question is, do you know your organization's purpose and strategy? And then they have 4 capabilities. We help evolve culture to build, strong relationships that they just organically form. Then we build partnerships, taking those relationships to partnerships. We're partnering together. We succeed together. We fail together. We're in this together. And ultimately to drive value. And then the 2 end ones, which are a little bit more ambiguous, these 2 are satisfy purpose. How do we satisfy personal purpose and align that with organizational purpose? And then moving from, they call it the now to the new, which to them sounded better than current state and future state. So, but if you look, you're going, okay, here's where we are today, here's where we want to be. Think about the luminous growth and improvement. We go from one or another. And so really what this is about is how do we build an organization of relationships, of strong relationships? And so if we're here today and maybe our relationships are not that great, how do we evolve the culture into one that creates great relationships? Because you get everybody harnessed going the same way, can change the world. So, alignment or convergence, if you prefer, is really about organizational purpose. It's aligning that and not projects, and so people can have different, can have the same goal, but different priorities, and what happens to me when we talked about this earlier, when you took the poll, is misalignment. If people aren't aligned together, aren't they converging together? They're all on their own. It's like, okay, this is, how my performance is assessed, and that's different than yours. So I'm going my direction because, I want a good performance review or a good bonus or whatever it is. Misalignment will slow things down. And this, I know I'm preaching to the choir out there. You've seen this, if people aren't on the same page, what happens? Nobody makes a decision because it's like, no, that's not that's their decision. or afraid to do a decision. Doesn't even matter slowing, but sometimes people are afraid. It's like, well, I can't make that decision. You better talk to someone else. Well, that's not my decision to make. And, nobody wants to make it. You conflict because there's different priorities, different ways of getting to the goal. And that, you start getting that, it limits value realization. And so how do we, which I think as PMs and BAs or even managers used to bring in the fold together, how do we help get past that? How do we help people move forward together and not separate? So they're not going all different directions. We're all pulling together to be able to understand, what does sales need? What does marketing need? What does HR need? Can we bring them together to understand what those shared outcomes might be? Because we all see something different from different lenses, and balance those priorities, And maybe we're working on onboarding. Okay, that's great. Well, sales might want faster onboarding to close those deals more quickly. HR wants it because they want good people to work with. Marketing, how do we market for that? I mean, everybody has a different aspect, no matter what you bring to the table, and it's really about, doesn't mean that everybody's going to agree, but we have to get agreement on what matters the most. How do we move forward? So this is a shift in mindsets here, so we're going to put our BRM hat on right now and saying, how is that different? How is that different? But think about a lot of times when we build relationships, if we really think about it, there are a lot of transactional based relationships. Okay, I'll do this for you. You can help me out next time. It's how influencing works. You do this, I'll do this back. Eventually we try. We exchange one thing for another, and it's more transactional. But what if we take that transactional approach and really build partnerships? We're in this together. It's not a this or that, or you got more and you owe me. It's really about bringing those relationships to a strong partnership level, that we're in this together. And when I succeed, you succeed. When you succeed, I succeed. It's particularly from a BRM perspective, because we want our partners to succeed. We want to help them succeed. We want the organization to succeed. Moving from mindset of my goals, here are the things each silo has their personal goals. Each person in the individual organization has their own goals. But what if we go to shared outcomes? Making that shift, going, okay, we all have separate goals, but what do we want as an outcome moving forward? Managing relationships, which we're doing, and we do stakeholder engagement, like I said, managing our relationships, managing our stakeholders, but that's different. It's creating value together. It's built around shared success, just not individual objectives. And then being able to going from just outputs. Okay, I delivered that project. There you go. Have fun. See you later. But really, did it advance the organization's purpose? And so oftentimes we go in and just, okay, so somebody wants a feature or a function from the software or a new report or whatever. And it's like, okay, you need a new report. What do you need in that report? We're kind of order takers. But what if we say, instead of what do you want on that report? What reports do you need that I can help with? What if you said, what decisions are you trying to make that you can't make today from this report? Think about it. Instead of just asking what they want on the report, you're asking them, what are you trying to do? What are you trying to accomplish? What decisions do you need to make that you can't make today? really trying to understand the why behind it because we're really good at the what's. I'm going to say most organizations are good. What do you need? There you go. You're at McDonald's. Oh, okay. Well, I'll take the um, Happy Meal or whatever. So instead of just saying the what and then giving it to them, what if we understood where they're coming from? What are they trying to accomplish with that change? That builds relationships, that builds trust. It's like, just tell me, and sometimes I go, well, just go do it because they're not used to talking with us on that level. But what if we go, what is the why? What are you trying to accomplish? What can't you um, do that you want to be able to do? What decisions do you want to make that this data isn't not giving you? Getting a bigger picture because the solution might be different depending on where you want to go. So this is more from going from relationships to value. A lot of times we go, okay, we give them a solution, whether that solution be a new process, new software, a new product. Okay, and then we get value from that. We're supposed to measure value. Value is a combination of benefits minus cost plus risk. And if the cost and risk are more, you get negative value. If the benefits are more, you get a positive value. Okay, done. But think about this in a little bit different light. Value creation doesn't start with solutions. Solution helps us get there. It starts with relationships. That alignment better improves our decision making, then the decision making leads to better outcomes. And so kind of figuring out how do we build those? So you think about meeting with your business leaders, learning that they were concerned with customer retention, and you had conversations and you said, okay, well, what is it around it? It's addressing the issues about retention and increased revenue. That could have multiple different solutions. And so having the conversations to uncover the opportunities that just the data alone will ever provide. Data is good. You want data. You want to support that information. Is this true? Is this just, somebody's assumption? Because you know what happens when we start assuming things. Not too good. So we have relationships can create or destroy value. So strong relationships can help us make decisions faster, certainly improve our collaboration, reduce conflict, because we're in this together, increase innovation. And I'm going to say reduce conflict. There's cognitive and affective conflict. I'd say affective conflict, which is the emotional conflict where people feel attacked. Cognitive conflict actually is very good, and it's a difference of opinions and ideas. I know I was just having a wonderful conversation with a colleague of mine on a class that she was updating, and some of the work I had done. And so she was very passionate about how she was, taking it. And I was very passionate about how I wanted to take it. And it's just like, but the wonderful thing is so there was a little bit of conflict, we both kind of it's like, what if we can have both and it turned out to be the best solution ever because, we had a difference of ideas, but we both had legitimate information, legitimate concerns and ideas. We brought them together and made the course even stronger. So, making sure that, we build those strong relationships, that trust, and rather than weak relationships where, nobody makes decisions. We got to do something over again. So, she creates the course and then I go, no, I don't like that. And I want to make some changes. And, you get missed opportunities, thinking about some of the strong relationships in your organization where you trusted each other and you got things done really quickly. This was only a half hour meeting. So we just like, okay, yep, no, we're good. Let's move on. But in a weak relationship, you're constantly arguing over ownership or the decision or, oh, I don't like that. What about this? No, I don't like that. You blame. So it's really about having high quality relationships. And of course, trust is key, right? And the foundation, before you build relationships, you got to have trust. Trust is the foundation of everything. As an external consultant for over 30 years, the first thing that I did when I went into organizations is build trust. And you had to do it quickly. You do the same thing when you build internal relationships. Build that trust. How do you build that trust? You're credible. You're reliable. You say what you're going to do. You're transparent. I was always transparent. I'll tell you what I can. And I'll tell you if I can't tell you something, I'll tell you that too. I'll tell you what I know. I'm not hiding anything. And really in empathy, and I'm not saying sympathy, I'm talking about empathy, realizing, kind of walking in their shoes, understanding what they're going through. So I am curious. I want to do a quick chat because you haven't done any chats lately. So so what's the toughest to do? Is it credibility, reliability, transparency, empathy? Where do you find? I'd love to hear from you because otherwise I'm just talking. So where do you find the most difficulty? I'm just curious. Transparency. Interesting. Or maybe even what's found in your organization. A lot of transparency. I'm intrigued. For those of you put transparency, put down why transparency? Why is that hard? I'd love to hear that. Reliability, a lot of transparency. So those again, a lot of people agree on transparency. So what does that make difficult? Is it on your end for transparency, or do you feel like it's on other people? Maybe your managers you don't feel like they're transparent, or your partners aren't transparent, your business partners. Stakeholders aren't transparent. That's interesting. Ooh, yeah, Gabriel. Organizations, politics, organization restrict transparency. Yeah, sometimes transparent. Yeah, so more we can be transparent, the more trust we build. Yeah, everyone has their own agenda and they don't, they're playing their cards close to their vest, as they would say. Yeah, need to know bias. Yeah, or you're not in the correct silo. Isn't that true? That gets really frustrating. And if you don't have all the data, it's really hard. So if we can grow that relationship strong, it might encourage that transparency, you know, getting others to buy in. So if we can do anything around that trust equation to build, because the more we build credibility, reliability, build that trust, that transparency will come going, I trust you, so I'm going to tell you what I might not tell other people. And that's a lot of the work that I did. And so I appreciate you. Thank you very much for sharing. So understanding what your partner needs is also another way to build relationships. So we said trust is key. It's a foundation. Another thing that we can do is understand our partners. Where are they coming from? To use an old adage. So listening, active listening. Here's the key. And I'm trying to get better at this because I can always talk over anyone, which is not effective. Focus first on understanding. This is a Covey. If you've done some of Covey's stuff, seek first to understand. So understand before we start solving problems. So whether we're going to our stakeholders for requirements, we're working on a project, or we're just trying to understand what they're trying to ask of us, listen first before solving. Because there were times when I first started working on projects, I figured I knew what they needed, so I didn't need to ask too many questions. And the trouble was I wasn't listening. And then I gave him something that maybe was okay, but there could have been something better. So being able to, and this is key thing that I have had to learn is listen first, ask better questions. Understand where they're coming from, understand their goals, understand their concerns, understand what brings them value. Where are they at? Because we want to make them look good too. We want to bring value to the organization, but as BRMs and strong people with relationships, we want to add value to them too. And that's what we do, whether we create, a new process or a new software, or just bring the right people to the table that adds value. Asking thoughtful questions first before jumping to solutions, understanding really where are they going? And doesn't matter. It's just really understanding the stakeholder goals in order to create that partnership. So we really need that. They call it relationship intelligence. Well, a lot of EQ, emotional intelligence, but relationship intelligence. If we're going in building strong relationships, we have to understand them, where they're going, what do they care about, what are their needs, what are their concerns, what are they trying to accomplish? Because then we can get on the same page, then we can move forward. And so here's the key. Maybe take a snapshot of this. If you are trying to have more outcome-focused conversations with your stakeholders, here's what you want to ask. Because most of the time conversations focus on what do you need done? What do you need done, right? Let me do it. I can go do it. What if we create a higher level conversation and say, what outcomes are you trying to achieve? Why does it matter? How do you know if you've been successful? See, it didn't say anything about activities. It didn't say anything about tasks. We didn't have any questions there. We didn't have any questions about solutions. This is around understanding the business need and where they're coming from. This is that strategic, business analysis work. This is that pre-project work. Rather than ask them, okay, what do you need in this new CRM feature? Customer relationship feature. What if we ask, what outcomes are you trying to achieve? Because that makes a difference. Like I said, I spent over 30 years consulting, and let me tell you, what they told me they wanted was not what they needed and what they were trying to get. I had to back them up and say, okay, got that. You need XYZ. Tell me why you need it. What are you trying to achieve? And oftentimes we would get to a different solution than they thought. Because I know a lot of times, and believe me, I've seen it, stakeholders come with solutions, right? They're really good at that. It's like, yeah, oh, here's a solution, just put it in, it'll solve all my problems. Maybe it will. I'm going to say maybe it might not either, because I've seen a lot of that. And so the solution should have nothing to do with the request. It's about really, what are you needing? And so I'll be respectful. I'll go, wow, that sounds kind of like a cool solution. Just so that I make sure that I'm on the same page, what is your outcome? What are you trying to accomplish that you can't do currently, but you want to be able to do? How do you know when you succeeded? If we succeeded, what will be easier in your life if we did that? Those are some of the questions. Yeah, Stephanie. Stephanie goes, amen to that. So these are some key questions, and it doesn't matter what you're doing, where you're at, ask those questions, and and then appreciate that they came with a solution. But it's like, okay, I have to know a little bit more. Got to know a little bit more. So the things that we do as BRMs is really break down silos. This poor tree is living in a silo at some point. It's not going to expand very much because it's in its own silo. It's kind of a great analogy for organizations, right? We're all in our own silos and we can't get outside those silos. But breaking them down, it's like we are this together. We're in the same company. Let's keep moving. What is that alignment? Making sure everyone is on the same page, they're going to the same direction, creating that trust. Being able to influence without authority, because let me tell you, we don't have it. But influence is huge. That's all I had as an external consultant, or even when I was an internal consultant. I only had my influence. A lot of times people didn't have to listen to me. I wasn't their boss. I wasn't, giving them their pay. They could have just ignored me. How did I get them to do what I needed done and make them successful? Influence. And so being able to shape that culture of relationships and collaboration, and as people see you do it, going, wow, they made it work. What if I could make it work? And you start building and evolving the culture and the organization, you know. So influence starts with trust. We talked about trust already and credibility. It's really not about title and authority. We can all do this. So we talked about the BRM framework before. I'm going to bring it down to something a little bit easier. When you go through the certification, it'll make sense, but we're going to keep it easy. So thinking about these 5 questions, and again, this might be a little, oh, I got to have that, is a practical way to apply BRM, and it's like, okay, what matters most to your partner? What do they care about? Now, the other thing I want to warn you, this can change. What matters most today might be different than what matters most tomorrow. They might have gotten a new manager, or they got new directives, or they got, so you have to stay on your toes on this. This is not constant over life. It changes, just like all the change coming at us, because then it's going to be different. Building the partnerships, who do we need to engage? Who do we need to bring to the table to get that full view? What are the behaviors that support success in this? What does that look like? Do we need to model those behaviors, those strong relationships? What outcomes do they care about? Because at the end of the day, you got to prove value. And how does it advance organizational goals, the organizational value, the organizational purpose? Every relationship should ultimately contribute to the organization value and outcomes. So it's always aligning purpose, creating those strong partnerships to get value. So another poll, I want you to think about an important stakeholder that you have right now. And where are they? Where are you in that relationship? Because one of the things is relationships just don't build themselves. We have to build them. We have to work on it. So I want you to think about somebody who's very important to you. You need each other. And Mariella, do you want to launch the poll? There we are. So thinking about that person, your strategic partner, your strong stakeholder relationship, and think about kind of where you are. Is trust engagement still limited? Do we have competing priorities that are still friction? We communicate regularly, so I feel pretty good, but maybe we're still not on the same page. All right, so I'm just waiting for a few more people, and then I'll end the poll. All right, and I'll share results. Wow, we have some work we can do. We had 14% highly aligned, still made, how do you even build from that? Communicate regularly, but alignment can be improved. Most people, almost 50%. We have competing priorities that create fiction, which isn't surprising, and then trust and engagement is limited. So, excuse me, I'm gonna sneeze. I hope not. I am, sorry. So, I want you to think about that relationship, because this is an important relationship to you. How do you make it stronger? What is the one action you could take this week to strengthen that relationship? So I'd love you to throw it in the chat. What are some ideas that you could do to strengthen that relationship that would be of value to them, value to you, and value to the organization? Tell her that I just didn't, um, let's see, they all of a sudden moved. Um, Tell her I didn't just accept a new position. Reach out with new curious approach. I like that. Not solution based. Tanya, I love that. Yes. And Kelly, I'm going to assume that telling her I didn't accept the new position. It's like, nope, I'm here, and we're going to work together. Touching base regularly. You all know this. I mean, these are things that, if you don't keep in contact with people, out of sight, out of mind, those are so true. So some really, really key pieces there. Love it. So just kind of thinking about what you can do. So thinking about BRM, the purpose, the organizational purpose guides those relationships, and those relationships create value. So BRMs, we as all of us are BRMs, building those strong relationships to get to the business outcome. And so the quality of those relationships really determine the quality of the results. And so I want to have you create that action plan. Think about one thing you can do tomorrow. One thing you can do tomorrow. Make a commitment to yourselves. You're going to schedule a value conversation, clarify maybe success measures. I'm not sure I really, I want to make sure that I know what success looks like to you. Revisit the priorities, start building a new relationship. Maybe there's somebody who you need to create a strong partnership with, because then you have a lot more influence as well. And maybe start thinking about how to build that. So kind of thinking about the one thing you can do tomorrow around that. So that was a quick journey around the world of BRM. Um, if we do have a BRM certification, so that's always there. And I would also put influencing without authority. We talked about that. That's another class we have, as well as strategic business analysis. So if you'd like to continue the journey, you certainly have classes to help you out. But in the meantime, we have about 5 minutes left. Do you have any questions? Because I know I covered quite a bit, and hopefully it all made sense, but maybe you have some questions I'd love to answer if I have a few minutes yet to do so.
Absolutely, Dr. Heidorn. I went ahead and dropped a couple links in the meantime. If anyone wants to drop any questions or feedback, please go right ahead. But just to get our top of the Q&A out of the way, please do not be afraid to click on any of those links to learn a little bit more about watermark learning, about business relationship management. We got a bunch of good information, good presentation.
Thank you, Tanya. Anyone? I know you're a bit anxious to get back to work, but we do have a few minutes.
Absolutely. Let us know. But in the meantime, we will absolutely be getting a recording after this. So be on the lookout for a link from us to make sure that you can come back, take a peek at any of the stuff we talked about. And we got a question here from Kim. What is the correct amount of small talk?
I would say it really depends on the person. So if they're like and you could use Myers-Briggs, if they're an extroverted thinker, I usually get the sign they're going like looking at their watch, going, "Oh, got it, keep it moving." So just getting to know them personally, how they like information. I usually start with small talk at first if I don't know the person and where they're at, and how much time do you have, and I might say, "Oh, what did you do this weekend?" And if they're going like, "Okay, what do we need?" I'll move on. So a lot of that has to do with personality and trying to figure out, oh gosh, I only got 20 minutes with them. I'm not going to, do too much small talk. But talk about, how we can build the relationship and how we can, my purpose is to help them get value and get that win-win. So what do I need to do that? What do I need from them to do that? And then we'll talk about here are the things that you need. What would you like to, what do you expect from me so that I know how to help you? Please repeat the equation for value. Oh, the equation for value is benefits, which are what you get out of it, minus cost plus risk. And if the cost and the risk are greater, you get negative value. If benefits beat cost and risk out, then you get a positive value. But I know we do a lot of like benefits realization. What we should be doing is value realization because you can get a lot of benefits, but if cost and risk are higher, you have negative value. And how did that do anything? And so I'm trying to get my clients more into instead of benefits management, which is a first step. Let's, if they haven't done anything, let's go there, but really talk about value management. All right. And Mariella, put that on our list because it might be a really good topic to do as a webinar is do value management.
Ooh, that would be amazing. Yeah, and I saw a couple people mention, AI being a huge hurdle
Oh my gosh,
for
yes.
change management. We absolutely have some stuff coming on the docket soon, so we will definitely be talking about that at length because it's definitely not going away anytime soon.
No, and everybody, almost every conversation I have is, how are we going to use AI or how do we manage the change through with AI? It's just, yeah. And I think Mariella, you're right. I believe we have something on the docket around that. So watch for an invite.
Absolutely. So thank you all so much for joining us today and taking a moment of your time to learn with us. I know that this is just on the list of the very long list of things for change management and relationship management. So thank you all so much for joining us. And if you need any more info, those links are going to be here. And we'll definitely follow up with you in an email as well with those links. So thanks again for joining us. And as always, thank you so much, Dr. Heidorn.
Oh, you're most welcome. Have a wonderful rest of your week, everyone.
Alrighty, everyone. Have a great rest of your day, and we'll catch you in the next one. Bye for now.